An elderly man with assets worth tens of billions marries a young and beautiful wife, but not long after, he contracts a mysterious illness. Every single day, he must drink water obsessively just to endure the pain. Strangely enough, no matter how many hundreds of bottles he drinks, the water in his body only decreases. At specific times each day, Wad's body erupts like a fountain, violently spraying water outward, while unbearable pain tears through his entire body. Because there is almost no moisture left inside him, his body has become as shriveled as a dried corpse. 80 world-renowned medical experts cut open Wad's body, drained his blood, and exhausted every known medical method. Yet in the end, they found absolutely nothing. Years of relentless suffering have aged him prematurely, making him look more like a 100-year-old man. His wife gradually grows disillusioned with him. She often secretly meets the butler behind his back. This situation continues until the arrival of a strange man. He calls himself Blackjack, a medical genius infamous throughout the medical world. Although he has no medical license, his consultation fee is as high as $3 million. Rumor has it there is no disease he cannot cure. In order to stay alive, Wad has no choice but to agree to all of Jack's demands. He explains that the castle's underground level has already been converted into an operating room. It is equipped with the most advanced medical technology in the world, but lacks a doctor capable of handling it. Sayuri begs Jack to save her husband at all costs. Jack says nothing. He walks straight into the archive room and begins studying the medical records left behind by previous doctors. These files were compiled by countless top-tier physicians from around the world. Some had even attempted blood cultures, yet no pathogen was ever discovered. Meanwhile, Wad's physical and mental deterioration continues to worsen alongside his pain. If this continues, death is inevitable. Just as Jack finds himself completely stuck, Sayuri visits him again late at night. She reveals that she is already 5 months pregnant. Even though the butler is unwilling to let go and continues to harass her, Sayuri has made up her mind to cut off all contact. She firmly believes the child in her womb belongs to Wad. She begs Jack to find a solution. She is willing to pay any price. Jack understands exactly what Sayuri is implying, but he has no interest in women. Instead, he devotes all of his time to research, and finally discovers a fatal oversight. Although the doctors have cut open Wad's painful areas countless times, every surgery was performed after an episode had already passed. If surgery could be conducted while the attack was actively happening, they might finally see what was truly going on inside his body. However, performing surgery on someone who is convulsing violently during an episode is almost impossible. Just then, the appearance of a young boy gave Jack inspiration. The boy is nothing more than a petty thief who sneaked into the castle to steal. He is bitten by a guard dog and happens to receive treatment from Jack. He was stealing for one simple reason: he wanted to dig a well. His father suffers from chimera virus disease. Without access to high-quality water, the virus tortures him to death. Those words instantly strike a chord with Jack. His instincts tell him that this illness is absolutely connected to Wad's condition. Sure enough, the boy's father shows symptoms nearly identical to Wad's, but this time, the father does not survive. After eerie blue light begins leaking from his mouth and eyes, he dies in agony. The boy's sobbing draws a crowd of villagers, along with a local female doctor named Minea. From Minea, Jack learns that the chimera virus went extinct 150 years ago. Legend says that those infected can only survive 3 to 10 years at most. Every single day before death is filled with suffering. Drinking water can temporarily relieve the pain, but it only worsens the next attack, until eventually the victim dies while emitting a blue glow from the mouth. Minea's own brother is also afflicted with this disease. After the siblings obtained medical licenses in the UK, they immediately returned to the island to fight the chimera virus. But now, her brother is in unbearable agony, and Minea is completely powerless to help him. Just as Jack returns to the castle, Sayuri suddenly falls into danger. She slips in the bathroom, and the fetus is now extremely unstable. If Jack mishandles the situation, both mother and child could die. At the same time, Wad confronts the butler. In truth, he has known about their affair all along, but due to his poor physical condition, he had chosen to silently tolerate it. Now that Sayuri has completely lost interest in the butler, Wad orders him to leave immediately. After an entire night of emergency treatment, Jack's extraordinary medical skills manage to save both mother and child. Immediately afterward, he begins investigating the castle's water supply. He discovers that the water comes from massive pumping systems that draw groundwater from the deepest underground veins of the island. This is Without question, the highest quality water source on the island. That is why Wad has managed to survive for 7 years since falling ill. Perhaps it is because Jack earned Wad's trust. Or perhaps Wad knows his time is nearly up. Not only does Wad decide to reward Jack with an additional $200,000, he also reveals his past. Before the age of 10, Wad lived on this very island. Then one day, the chimera virus resurfaced. For reasons unknown, only Wad's family became infected. Although the virus had been brought under control, the villagers still burned Wad's entire family alive. Only Wad survived by jumping into a well and hiding from the villagers' massacre. Strangely enough, Wad did not fall ill afterward. He left the island. After decades of relentless struggle, he finally achieved success and fame. He even married Sayuri, a woman 40 years younger than himself. Wad believed he could finally enjoy life. But one day, without warning, the virus inside his body suddenly erupted. Excruciating pain tormented him day after day. Wad sensed that the next time it struck, he would surely die while spewing blue light from his mouth. So he begged Jack to perform surgery on him during the next attack. He hoped to use his own death to uncover the mystery of the chimera virus. What Wad did not know was that the villagers were about to repeat their past atrocities. Now that the chimera virus had resurfaced, and the island's high-quality water source was monopolized by Wad, the villagers began directing all their hatred toward Wad. They raised their sickles once more, preparing to enforce what they called justice yet again. At that very moment, the first snowfall of winter quietly fell. Sayuri asked the servants where her husband was. She knew Wad loved watching the snow. If she could be by his side, he would surely be happy. Wad did see the snow, but it was while he was being wheeled toward the operating table. At that moment, he suddenly realized he had not said good morning to Sayuri today. In the past, he never missed a single day, but today, he decided to let it go. He did not want anyone else to worry anymore. As soon as they entered the basement, Wad's symptoms immediately erupted. His entire body convulsed violently. Even a full dose of anesthesia had no effect. At this moment, Jack hesitated. He had no confidence in this surgery at all. Although Wad screamed in agony, his eyes never stopped urging Jack onward. In the end, Jack relied on his extraordinary skill and successfully opened Wad's chest with a scalpel, but to his shock, the main artery of Wad's heart was emitting a blue glow. Moments later, Wad spat out blue light and died. By then, the villagers had already stormed into the castle, yet the butler did not flee. He went to Sayuri's room. He hid her and the maid inside the wardrobe. Then he picked up an iron rod, preparing to resist. In the next instant, he was killed by the villagers. By the time the villagers arrived, the surgery had already ended. All they saw was Wad's lifeless body. This old man had never hated anyone. He even wanted to use his own death to uncover the secret of the chimera virus. Yet he was still cursed by the villagers. As for whether Sayuri survived, or where she went afterward, no one knows. Many years later, the legendary chimera virus became known to the world. It was a virus capable of hiding itself. It existed between the layers of the main arterial walls, and could only be discovered by opening the patient's chest during an active episode. Although clues were finally found, the virus remained incurable. The one who discovered this truth was the great Dr. Minaya. Even the host could not help but praise Minaya's medical skill. She was able to perform surgery while the patient's entire body was convulsing. Minaya simply smiled and said that it was a mysterious and great patient who used his life to unveil the true face of the chimera virus. At just 35 years old, Koichiro inherited a fortune worth hundreds of billions. He then contracted a strange illness. A human face began growing on his stomach, and it would often open its mouth and talk to him. Because of this, he invited the renowned Dr. Blackjack. Not only did he allow Jack to name any price for the treatment, he even built a small private hospital inside his home. After examining him, Jack discovered that the face-like growth on Koichiro's stomach was something called a mensor, a benign tumor. However, Koichiro's description of how the tumor formed struck Jack as extremely bizarre. At that time, Koichiro was 6 years old. He accidentally noticed many dark blotches appearing on his stomach. Soon, the area of the blotches kept expanding until they formed the shape of a human face. By the time he was 10 years old, the face on his stomach suddenly began speaking to him. From that moment on, Koichiro's life became a living hell. Exhausted, Koichiro was unwilling to say anything more. Supported by his wife, He went to the bedroom, but that place hardly looked like a room meant for living, like a mentally ill person who had lost all self-control. He was tightly bound to a small bed frame. Koichiro's wife told Jack that after Koichiro fell asleep, he would often run outside uncontrollably. That was why he tied himself up before going to sleep. Jack planned to examine him again early the next morning, but unexpectedly, Koichiro disappeared that very night. The butler begged Jack to wait there for a few days. Based on past experience, Koichiro usually returned after 2 or 3 days, but Jack firmly refused. Once a patient went missing, his work could no longer continue. He gave the butler 2 choices: either take him to find Koichiro or hire another doctor. Koichiro's wife agreed to Jack's demand. The butler led Jack to the places Koichiro often visited. While eating, a man happened to run into Jack. He was a police officer named Yamada. However, he was already close to retirement age. Recently, Yamada had encountered a strange case. There had been more than a dozen incidents of luxury cars being vandalized across the city. Surveillance footage showed the culprit was a young boy, but after more than a year of investigation, they still hadn't caught him. What was even stranger was that when they enlarged the boy's fingerprints, they discovered the patterns were exactly the same as another suspect's. Yet that criminal was clearly an adult woman. This woman specialized in seducing married men and murdering them while they slept. And coincidentally, both suspects would carry a yellow umbrella before committing their crimes. While Yamada was venting to Jack, the police station suddenly called. Another murder had occurred. Judging by the method, the killer was clearly the woman they had been chasing. Yamada hurried off to the crime scene. Jack told the butler to take Pinocchio home first. He intended to continue searching for Koichiro's whereabouts. At that moment, a young girl called out to Jack. She said her friend was injured and asked Jack to help her. Jack, confused, followed her to a nearby residence. There, he indeed saw an injured woman. Jack took hold of the woman's hand to examine her wound. To his shock, he discovered a human-faced tumor growing on her hand. Before he could react, the woman suddenly bolted outside. Watching her disappear into the distance, Jack realized this had to be connected to Koichiro. He hurried back to Koichiro's mansion, ignoring the butler's attempts to stop him. Jack rushed straight into Koichiro's bedroom. Sure enough, the woman was there. Seeing that the truth could no longer be hidden, Koichiro's wife confessed that the woman was, in fact, Koichiro. Yet the woman called herself Yunako, mocking Koichiro as a pathetic coward. Amid horrifying laughter, the human-faced tumor moved from the palm of her hand to her face. In the very next moment, that face transformed into Koichiro's appearance. Although Koichiro possessed immense wealth, he lived every day trapped in deep inferiority and dared not leave his home. All of it was because of the face growing on his stomach. At night, that face would seize control of his consciousness. It not only made his temperament wildly unstable, but even changed his voice, appearance, and gender. Yet every morning when he woke up, he remembered nothing of what he had done. To understand what was happening, Jack hypnotized Koichiro. When asked who Yanako was, Koichiro replied that she was his good friend. She often stood behind him, quietly encouraging him. Jack then asked whether he had any other friends besides Yanako. At that moment, Koichiro answered in a boy's voice, "Of course I have lots of friends, but I won't tell you." At this point, Jack was certain Koichiro was not only suffering from a human-faced tumor, but also from severe dissociative identity disorder. This was a new type of illness, triggered by the extreme pressure of modern society. What made it even more difficult was that these two conditions had merged. Whenever another personality took control, Koichiro's gender and even his height would change. Seeing this, Jack decided to immediately perform surgery to remove the human-faced tumor. However, he could not be certain whether Koichiro's other personalities would disappear after the tumor was removed. To maximize the chances of success, Jack demanded that the butler tell him everything he knew. Left with no choice, the butler finally revealed the truth. As the eldest son of a powerful financial family, Koichiro had been subjected to his father's harsh discipline since childhood. Any small mistake would earn him a beating. Even so, Koichiro endured it. That was because he had a gentle mother who always protected him. However, when Koichiro was 6 years old, his father forced his mother into divorce to give his mistress a legitimate status. Just 1 month later, unable to bear the blow, his mother drowned herself. From that moment on, Koichiro's psyche became severely distorted. Both the human-faced tumor and his multiple personalities were born at that time. He hated luxury cars because one had taken his mother away. Thus, the personality of a young boy emerged, dedicated to destroying every luxury car he saw. Koichiro believed that if he could destroy those cars, he could somehow bring his mother back. His female personality was born from his hatred toward his father for abandoning his mother. After learning the full truth, Jack decided to proceed with surgery immediately. At the same time, the police made a breakthrough. After comparing all archived fingerprints, they discovered that Koichiro's fingerprints perfectly matched those of the suspect. An arrest order was issued at once. Jack's surgery went smoothly, but as soon as the wound was sutured, the human face tumor suddenly spread across Koichiro's entire body. It turned out that even the tumor itself had developed a personality. The monstrous Koichiro escaped from the operating room. He ran straight into police officers who had come to investigate. In that critical moment, he asked the personalities within him whether they should end everything here. Yanako and the boy both told him not to do anything foolish, saying there was still so much left to do. But the exhausted Koichiro had had enough. He chose to end everything right then and there. The bullet pierced straight through his heart. Now, even Jack could do nothing, yet at the moment of death, Koichiro felt a long-lost happiness. It was as if he had returned to the days spent together with his mother, and Jack finally realized that, no matter how extraordinary his surgical skills were, they could never heal the deepest pain hidden within the human heart.